If you've never done this, you'll not quite understand just how weird this feels. So I hope that someday you get the opportunity to understand how weird this feels. Let's pray together to start. God, we are here this morning and we are waiting to hear from you. Help me, God, to get out of your way. Make my words the words that you intend, the message that you intend, and open the ears of those who would hear my words and make them the words that you would have them hear, despite what I might say. In your holy Son's name I pray. Amen. Amen. So we have officially arrived at summer, that is. Just as the official first day of summer came last week and we reached heat indexes of 100 or more. And I'll stop there as I did in the first service and remind you, drink lots of fluid, water preferably. Be careful with your outdoor pets, and also check on your neighbors, young, old, or just those of us who feel that way. It's also a time when our little town has grown and filled with visitors. I think I read in the news this week that Carolina Beach alone has swelled from our usual 6,000 residents to around 30,000 people. That's a big difference. So this is where I will stop and remind you to offer a little of God's grace on the roadways, in our restaurants, and especially in the grocery store. As I ruminated this week, I realized that I love living at the beach. Amen? Amen. I've heard it said, if you're lucky enough to live at the beach, you're lucky enough. And I think that there's a lot of truth in that. We are fortunate to be able to live here at the beach. And summer is my absolute favorite season that happens when it's incredibly hot outside. There are many other things that I love about summer. I love tomatoes. I love that it stays light until 9 o'clock at night, which is about Sean's bedtime, I think. And perhaps my absolute favorite part of summer is sea turtles. I didn't know a few years ago that sea turtles were going to become such an important part of my summer. I didn't know that I would join the throng of people who live on or near this island, who spend a great deal of their summer trekking to the beach. Not sunbathing or surfing or not playing games or building sandcastles as the tourists do. No, we spend our summers sitting on the beach at night. You will see us, beach chairs in hand, as we trek down the beach at dusk or later and wait for baby sea turtles. We wait for them to emerge from the nest. With great excitement, we wait for them to come. Sometimes we wait, and we wait, and we wait, and we wait a little longer. And sometimes our wait is short, and the babies seem to come out in a hurry right away, right on time. I suspect some of you, if you're parents, maybe have experienced that with your own children. Some come right on time, some come early, some make you wait. You see, we sit in the dark because baby turtles are drawn to light. The reflection of the moon over the ocean is the way that they know how to get to the ocean. It's how they know how to come up out of the nest and make it to the water. They see the reflection of the moon. No one has to tell a baby turtle that that's how they get to the ocean. No one has to give them a roadmap or directions. No one has to tell them how to do this. They just know it. It's in their DNA. God put it in them before they were born to know, to go toward the light. In the Gospel of John, in the first chapter, we find John speaking about light, the light of the world. And I'm going to read from the Common English Bible. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. The Word was with God in the beginning. Everything came into being through the Word, and without the Word nothing came into being. What came into being through the Word was life, and the life that was the light for all the people. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness doesn't extinguish the light. A man named John was sent from God. He came as a witness to testify concerning the light, so that through him everyone would believe in the light. He himself was not the light, but his mission was to testify concerning the light. The true light that shines on all people was coming into the world. The light was the world, and the world came into being through the light. But the world didn't recognize the light. The light came to his own people, and his own people didn't welcome him. But those who did welcome him, those who believed in his name, he authorized to become children of God, born not from blood, nor from human desire or passion, but born from God. This is the word of God for all people. Thanks be to God. You see, Jesus was the human incarnation of God. Jesus was the light. And like our baby turtles, we are drawn to the light. It is in our nature, just as it is in the nature of a baby turtle, to be drawn to the light. We are naturally drawn to God because it is in our nature. It is a nature that God created in us before we were born. Meister Eckhart, a German theologian, philosopher, and mystic in the 13th century, said, "The soul must long for God in order to be set aflame by God's love. For if the soul cannot yet feel the longing, then it must long for the longing. To long for the longing is also from God." It's kind of a confusing quote. It's one of those kind of riddles that kind of turns on itself. But what he's saying is that we have a desire for God. We have a desire for God before we even know that we have a desire for God. And the desire to have the desire for God is actually the desire for God. We can't get away from it. We have a desire for God. It is innate. It is in us from the beginning. In 1 Peter 2, verse 9, and this is Gayle's paraphrase, so when you look it up later, it won't read quite like this. "You are chosen. You are God's own. You are his people, so that you may speak of the wonderful acts of the one who called you out of darkness and into his amazing light." We'll say that last part again. You are his people, so that you may speak of the wonderful acts of the one who called you out of darkness and into his amazing light. You are called. You are called to the light. By the very nature of the love of God that was given to us before we ever knew that we needed it, before we ever knew that we wanted it, before we ever thought that we deserved it. You are called to light, to the love of God. If you spend enough time trying to help baby sea turtles, eventually, and really it's never quite that long, you will hear someone say something like, Turtles have been doing this for thousands of years, and they are prehistoric creatures. Why not just let them do what nature tells them to do? Why are you out here interfering? Seems like a good question. Seems like a reasonable question. Turtles have been doing this longer than any of us have been alive, and will probably continue to do it, hopefully, longer than any of us will be alive. But the reason that we're out there trying to help the turtles is because our precious babies can get confused. They can get confused by artificial light. You see, thousands of years ago, when baby turtles were hatching and running to the ocean, there really was just the moon. There was nothing else that could draw them away. There was nothing else that would confuse them. There was just the moon. But today, there's plenty of artificial light. And they could mistakenly go the opposite way from the ocean. And not go to the ocean, but go to the street. And we don't want them to get confused. In 1879, Thomas Edison created the incandescent light bulb. It was the first illumination in New York City. And in our modern era, electric light is prominent. It's everywhere. Our world has become awash in electric light. So much so that in 1994 there was an earthquake in Los Angeles, and all of the power was locked out. And so all of a sudden there's all these phone calls coming to the emergency services. People were calling in to all of these call centers, reporting this strange thing that was happening in the sky. They were seeing this glowing of a silvery giant thing in the sky, and they were afraid because they didn't know what it was. It was something weird happening in the sky. It was a really weird thing called the Milky Way. But they hadn't been able to see the Milky Way before because of all of the electric light that was in the city. They couldn't see the natural light because of the electric light. And you see, our turtles are a lot like that. Sometimes they get so confused by the electric lights that they miss the natural light. We're a lot like that. We can get very, very confused by what is natural light and what is artificial light. We can look at our lives and we can see things that we think are important, and we can chase after them. Things like success, money, possessions, or people. We can get confused by people and we think we're following something that's good, but it's really we're just following a person. Or we can get confused by calls. Sometimes are really good calls, where you think that you are doing good in the world, and maybe you are doing good in the world because you are really working for this cause, and it's a really good cause, and it does really good things in the world. But is it the light of God? Is it you truly sharing Jesus? Are you taking the light of the world to the world, or are you just working? This morning, Eston Brinkley was here, who is the, how do I describe who Eston is? He's the head of the district for lay speaker ministries. He wears several different hats. But he was here this morning. I lost him. I'll speak louder. He was here this morning to offer, to give an award to Randy Evans. And one of the things that he talked about was how we can and do do good works, and that there are many organizations, many civic organizations that do really good things. But sometimes those really good things aren't giving Christ to the world. And how walking Tall Ministries not only feeds the poor, not only feeds the hungry, not only helps those who are without shelter, but also is offering them Christ. Is also taking the light of the world to people. And that we can do those things. There are plenty of organizations, civic organizations, that do really wonderful things in the world, but they aren't teaching Jesus. They aren't taking the light of the world to the people. I'm way off my notes, y'all. So give me a second. In Matthew 5, Jesus tells us, "You are the light of the world. A city on top of a hill cannot be hidden. Neither do people light a lamp and put it under a basket. Instead, they put it on top of a lampstand, and it shines on all who are in the house. In the same way, let your light shine before people so that they can see the good things you do and praise your Father who is in heaven." Not only are we called to follow the light of Jesus, but we are called, as we talked to the kids this morning, to be that reflection. We are called to reflect God. We are called to reflect Jesus into the world. A few years ago, I had a pretty amazing opportunity with the Sea Turtle Project. I had the opportunity to be the moon. It's as cool as it sounds. For the record, it's not the method that we now use for helping the turtles to get to the ocean, so if you talk to Nancy, don't tell her that I'm telling you wrong. But what we would do is we would take a lantern, a Coleman lantern, and we would hold it so that the baby turtles would follow that light to the ocean to make sure that they made it safe. And I got to hold the lamp. I got to be that person. And it was really awesome. I think the most amazing part of it was that the turtles crawl on your feet. And so you're holding this lamp right at the edge of the waves, and the turtles are following you, and they're following that light so closely that not only are they crawling on your feet, but they'll try to crawl up your leg to get to the light. They are so focused on getting to that light that they will try to climb up your leg to get to the light. It was an incredible experience. But it made me think, how much am I trying to get to the light of God? How hard am I trying? Am I willing to try to climb up whatever I have to get to the light? Am I trying as hard as I can to get to the light? I think that's what we're being called to do, to be just like the turtles. Climb whatever you got to get there. Get to the light. My favorite part of this opportunity, maybe not quite my favorite, but maybe. But one of the things that I had to do was to make sure I didn't fall. You don't want to fall while you're doing this. And if you've ever played in the ocean, and as I told the first service, if you haven't played in the ocean, it really is right over there. And I'm going to recommend that you go this afternoon and make that happen. But if you've ever played in the ocean, you know that the waves can take you out. And they can take you out in a hurry if you're not paying attention. And so here I am holding a light, and I'm backing toward the ocean. And so I had a spotter. I had a person who walked with me, who had their hand on my shoulder the entire time as I backed toward the ocean. And the whole time they were giving me information. How close I was to the ocean, whether or not a wave was coming, whether or not I needed to do this or do that. They were showering me with information the entire time. Friends, we all need those people. We need those holy friends. We need those Christian friends that have their hand on our shoulder as we walk into the treacherous water. We need those holy friends who have the hand on our shoulder, who say, "You're going the right way." We need those friends who are going to say, "Hey, you need to stop." We need those holy friends. They are as important to our lives as anything else can be. And we need to develop them if we don't have them. So if you're here today and you don't have a friend, before you leave, let's find you that holy friend. That person who's going to be that in your life. The other thing that was important when I was being the lantern, being the light, being the moon, was that I had to be very careful where I put my feet. Because the last thing you want to do is step on a turtle. You're out there to save the turtles. You don't want to hurt them. I can't imagine how it would feel if I had stepped on a turtle and killed it. You have to be very careful where you put your feet. And I think as Christians, we have to be careful where we're putting our feet. Especially when it comes to other people. I don't know about you, but maybe you've been in a meeting at the church or somewhere else, some other organization, religious organization, and some new person says, "I think we should." And there's quickly a person who says, "We've never done it that way. We always do it this way." Or "We tried that once, and it just didn't work." Pretty soon when that happens, you go to a meeting and somebody's looking around saying, "What happened to that new person?" Because they got stepped on. They got squashed. All of their ideas were shooed away. We have to be careful. We have to be careful who we're stepping on. We have to be careful how we are not encouraging people. We have to be careful how we are encouraging people. We have to be careful how we're being the holy friend to someone else. We have a responsibility. We have a responsibility to make room. We have a responsibility to lead and to encourage others. You see, like our scripture says, true light shines on all people. True light authorizes us to be the children of God. I'm going to say that again because it just sounds so good to me. True light authorizes us to be the children of God. I feel pretty special being a child of God. And I hope you do too. Because it's a pretty special place to be. We are called to be the light by the wonderful acts of God, that we might speak of the light. You are the light. God has called you to be the light. God has called you to be the reflection of Him in the world. You have a responsibility. And I challenge you today to take up your light and hold it high. Let's pray together.